We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we are going to be talking about what a new watch is. Now I will explain what I mean by that because it is a little bit in the gray area of the definition of the types of watches and their conditions, but it's something we've got to talk about just because we've been getting a lot of calls about it at Delray Watch Supply, where we buy, sell, trade pre-owned watches and some unworn, or what some people might call, but isn't correct, new watches. So we'll talk about this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thumbs up. It helps me, help you. Comments, things you want to see in the future or hear about in the future, and Instagram, The Real John P. I'll admit, it is becoming a bit of a mouthful to kind of regurgitate all of that stuff every time, but it is part of the program, so thank you for bearing with that if you are a loyal subscriber. So, guys, new watches, unworn watches. There's the distinction between the two. So let me back up and tell you what's kind of, I guess you would say, inspiring me to create this video. So someone called, the people that normally answer the phones, they were busy, so I picked up the call. I was speaking to a very nice guy, but he had a lot of questions about why we have watches marked unworn at DelrayWatch.com and not new, because there's some platforms like Chrono24 and eBay and others, especially internationally, that don't always make a clear distinction about what a new or unworn watch is, whether it comes with warranty papers, how long left, and there is some gray area in the market. So here's the thing. Only authorized dealers or boutiques or the brands themselves, and I don't care which brand it is, they are the only ones that can call a watch new. If a watch is unworn or unused, it needs to be specified and labeled as unworn or unused. Now, I'll talk about a couple of different conditions here, but it's very important to let everybody know that when you buy a new watch, and the term new, it can only be used if you walk into a boutique, you walk into an authorized dealer, and they actually put your name on the warranty card, and you're actually making somewhat of a direct connection with that brand. When you buy an unworn watch from places like Gray Market, Joma Shop, Authentic Watches, all of the others, which, by the way, I have no partnership or affiliation with, you're not buying a new watch, you're buying an unworn watch, which has all the same benefits of a new watch, except for you're not getting the experience from the boutique or the brand. You're also, most of the times, not getting the warranty card, though sometimes you do get the warranty card. For example, we have a Breitling at Delray Watch, and it does have the warranty information, the full box papers, everything. It's unworn. Now, later in the video, I'll talk about where these kind of new or unworn watches are coming from, because it does raise a lot of interesting questions from collectors, especially newer collectors. And I don't want to say that they're suspicious, but they almost, it's difficult as a newer collector. I remember when I was a newer collector as well, to kind of conceptualize and know where all the pieces are coming from, because everyone has watches new, unworn, mislabeled. So there's a lot of confusion. I'll talk about later in this video at the end where they're coming from. But let me run through the list of kind of the conditions I have in terms of watches that we use, as well as many of the other reputable dealers that we work and do a lot of business with. So the first one here is new. You won't see a new watch labeled new on our website. They'll be labeled unworn, but new watches are from the boutiques or the manufacturers once again. Unworn is a watch that's just that. It's not been worn. It may have the box and papers, it may not have the box and papers, but the one thing that it definitely does have, and it's not disputable, is that it's not been worn, tried on. It's most of the time going to have the original stickers on it, sometimes not, just depending on where the watch came from. And most of the time it does have the boxes and the manuals, and a lot of the time it does have the warranty card, which may or may not be transferable, but that is between you and the brand, you know, should you ever need to exercise anything from the warranty from that brand. And there are some mixed information depending on the brands, but generally speaking, a lot of brands will accept the warranty information regardless of where you bought the watch, as long as the warranty paperwork is valid. And that's really just a function of how brands handle their warranty and watchmaking, more so than brand policy, but we can talk about that in another video. And then moving down the list, we have store display. Now, store display watches will come at a little bit better of a price point than the unworn or the new category watches. They'll still be really unworn outside of a shop, but generally the stickers are removed, and there may be a little bit, and I mean tiny, hairline micro, only to be seen under microscope or loop swirls, if you will, or brushings to where a sales associate in a store somewhere or boutique carefully handed the watch to, Mr. Jones, the customer, and he put it on and maybe he took a snapshot. Now I'm finding that a lot of brands or ADs or boutiques do not allow you to take an Instagram photo, for example. They tell you, no cameras, especially at the Richard Mille boutiques and things of that nature. But that's kind of what it is, right? It's a watch that's been unworn or unsold to the public, but it has been used as a display. Someone's looked at it, or maybe a salesman, carried it around between the brands, or maybe it's circled inside of one of the manufacturers. So that's what it is. So still very, very good in terms of almost being unworn, but so it will be free of someone like diving with it or something like that, obviously. But you should take that under consideration. Now the next one, in terms of the different, I guess you'd call them conditions, is very good. Now, very good is a condition that we use a lot because we just don't stock some of the worst conditions. It's just not worth it to anyone. And generally speaking, if there's a lot of damage in a piece that's direct, kind of like impact to the case metal, there could be other issues. So we don't touch it, and a lot of other dealers don't. When you're looking on Chrono24 and you're looking on eBay, these are things you have to look for. But when we talk about very good, we talk about if there's any kind of swirls or brushings in the watch case, they can be very easily corrected or rectified by most polishers and watch case refinishers. So very good is anything that would be normal wear and tear of just wearing a watch a couple times per week within a year or two, or maybe even a couple years after that if it was a bit of a safe queen. So nothing that can't be quickly rectified, but as collectors, we all know that, especially when we're talking Rolex or some of the other brands like that, unpolished is always favorable to polished, even if it means having a couple of light swirls and signs of wear, because hey, it is the world of pre-owned watches, much like pre-owned cars. So something to consider, still a very good value, and once again, an even better value as we move down the list, an even better price point than some of the store displays are unworn. Now, there's some other categories, and I'm just going to lump them all in because I feel it's pretty self-explanatory, but we've got some good, fair, and heavily worn. Now, you just kind of move down the list, and you can assume that the quality gets a little bit worse. Once again, we don't touch much of these, if at all, but when you start getting into vintage, 50, 60-year-old pieces, and if someone was wearing them as a daily driver, remember, once again, vintage watch collecting has really only become extremely popular in the last, decade. Before that, they were just old watches to most people, so there's going to be where people were wearing their watches. By the way, I am wearing my vintage gold Rolex Datejust with the diamond bezel on it, which I still haven't gotten around to replacing. I want to put the original bezel back on it because I've been getting made fun of by Federico for having a diamond bezel on it, but it looks cool, and I have no problem admitting that. So once again, in the vintage, there's going to be some wear and tear, so generally speaking, that's something to consider in that category as well. Now, I know many of you want to skip ahead to this next section, and so I'll go ahead and I'll jump forward to there. Where are these new watches or unworn watches coming from? And that's where the conversation went with the gentleman this morning, but basically, they're coming from a few different places, and none of them are illegal or against the law or against the rules of watch collecting, or you shouldn't do that, nothing like that, because sometimes in the watch forums you get these guys, but nothing along those lines. They're coming from jewelry stores that are going out of business, authorized dealers or jewelry stores that need to free up some cash, or they're coming from the brands generally dumping a little bit of excess inventory, or in the case of when CVC Capital Partners purchased Breitling, dumping a lot of excess inventory. And of course, what types of watches are they going to be dumping? They're going to be dumping unworn or what they would have called brand new watches. So talking about the authorized dealers, when you have an authorized dealer, they're buying watches from the brand directly or a distributor, and they're marking them up and selling them at suggested retail price. And sometimes they'll give you a discount depending on the brand and how badly they need to make a sale. But setting that aside, when you have a jewelry store that needs to free up cash, well, what are they going to do? They're going to move things that are as good as cash. And if you sell a watch at their wholesale price or even below, they're going to be able to sell it to other dealers that perhaps have a better online marketing setup, that don't have a local jewelry store as a lot of authorized dealers. And this goes, it's the same whether it's in Asia or parts of South America or the United States. I'll say that in our experience here, we're seeing more jewelry stores trying to free up cash in other developing nations, parts of South America, parts of Asia, and of course the brands, they need authorized dealers in those locations to sell watches too, so they don't complain too much because, hey, they're still buying and selling pieces and they're meeting their quota. So it all goes around and there's varying degrees of acceptance. The other thing we have to consider is, well, why would the jewelry store need to do this? Why would they need to free up cash? What is the problem here? They need to free up cash because they need to buy more pieces from the brands. Consider this. Consider, let's say that you're an Omega authorized dealer, for example. We won't even say which part of the world you're located in, but let's say that you're an authorized Omega reseller or authorized dealer, as they're called. And all of a sudden, Omega comes knocking and says, hey, you haven't placed an order this month yet. Which pieces are you going to buy? Well, Mr. Jones that owns the Omega authorized dealer, he's looking at it in his shelf. He's looking in the case. He sees a lot of Aquaterras. He sees a lot of DeVilles. He says, wow, these ceramic Seamasters are blowing out the door, but I only get so many. What am I going to do with these DeVilles? Omega's going to want me to place another order. I want the Seamasters because they sell, but these DeVilles, I can't sell them. So what they do is they dump them at cost or a little bit below because they want to keep the brand happy. They need the cash and they need to place the order. What the brands can do, and the brands do this all the time, is they threaten or they actually move forward with it, and they'll pull away that dealer's ability to sell the watches. They'll say, you're not an authorized dealer anymore and we're not going to ship you pieces anymore. And this happens, and this has happened a lot over the course of the last 10, 20 years. And so what we see is the brands, they'll also have large, advertising budgets. You see on the side of the road a big billboard that says, check out this new Omega Seamaster at so-and-so authorized dealer where you can also buy other things. And so now the authorized dealer is going to miss out on that free advertising or partnership advertising. They're going to miss out on a lot of other foot traffic because they don't have those watch brands. And that's just a horrible thing for a small business. And so they'll push the watches out the back door, and I don't mean anything negatively about that, but they'll sell them out the back door to other dealers, online dealers, wholesalers, gray markets, distributors, and the value does get passed along to the consumer. In my opinion, the only thing that you really miss is that boutique experience, right? You're going to miss going to the jewelry store, going to the boutique, having a glass of champagne, and, listening to a couple of lousy jokes from the salesperson. You'll miss that, but you'll get a 40%, maybe 50% savings. And I mean, in the world of luxury items where when something turns new to used and you instantly take a hit anyways, unless it's Rolex, Patek, or a few other select brands, why not get the savings? That's my opinion, but of course I am a bit biased. But even before Delray Watch, I also bought pre-owned. I bought gray market, unworn. Very rarely did I go pay retail because you don't need to. I don't need to listen to a couple funny jokes and have a glass of champagne. I mean, there's places you can go to do that, right? But I'm getting a little carried away with that. So looking at this, I hope that some of you find this incredibly insightful, at least those that are a little bit newer to watch collecting, and I hope it also helps to reiterate and kind of re-solidify some of these other concepts with some of you other watch collectors and buffs out there that have been in the game, so to speak, for a while, because I'm noticing that a lot of these things here that we've talked about as far as the dumping and the jewelry stores that need to free up a little bit of cash, it's happening a lot more. We're seeing a consolidation in terms of pre-owned watch dealers getting rolled up into larger companies as well. And so it's something to look for in the coming years. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be so many deals to be had because of the way that brands are pushing on the jewelry stores to perform and the jewelry stores not adapting with the times to go online and being unable to perform. But that's in the white paper that I'm going to release on all of my thoughts. Maybe even I'll write a book about this. But anyway, guys, I hope you found this great. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help. Comments, leave below things you'd like to see in the future. DelrayWatch.com, Instagram, The Real John P. You have been chatting with John P. Ciao.